Section 14. Letters 66 to 70. Letter the 66th. The Vicomte de Valmont to the Marquise de Merteuil.
You will see, my lovely friend, by a perusal of the two enclosed letters, whether I have well fulfilled your project. Although both are dated to-day, they were written yesterday at my house, and beneath my eyes. That to the little girl says all that we wanted. One can but humble oneself before the profundity of your views, when one judges of it by the success of your measures. Danceny is all on fire, and assuredly, at the first opportunity, you will have no more reproaches to make him. If his fair ingénue choose to be tractable, all will be finished a short time after her arrival in the country. I have 100 methods all prepared. Thanks to your care, behold me decidedly the friend of Danceny. It only remains for him to become prince.
Note. This expression refers to a passage in a poem by Monsieur de Voltaire.
He is still very young, this Danceny. Would you believe it, I have never been able to prevail on him to promise the mother to renounce his love. As if there were much hindrance in a promise, when one is determined not to keep it. It would be deceit, he kept on repeating to me. Is not this scruple edifying, especially in the would-be seducer of the daughter? That is so like men, all equally rascally in their designs. The weakness they display in the execution they christen probity. It is your affair to prevent Madame de Volanges from taking alarm at the little sallies which our young man has permitted himself in his letter. Preserve us from the convent. Try also to make her abandon her request for the child's letters. To begin with, he will not give them up, and I am of his opinion. Here love and reason are in accord. I have read them, these letters. I have assimilated the tedium of them. They may become useful. I will explain. In spite of the prudence which we shall employ, there may arise a scandal. This would break off the marriage, would it not, and spoil all our Gercourt projects. But as on my side I have to be revenged on the mother, I reserve for myself, in such a case, the daughter's dishonour. By selecting carefully from this correspondence, and producing only a part of it, the little Volanges would appear to have made all the first overtures, and to have absolutely thrown herself at his head. Some of the letters would even compromise the mother, and would at any rate convict her of unpardonable negligence. I am quite aware that the scrupulous Danceny would revolt against this at first, but as he would be personally attacked, I think he would be open to reason. It is 1,000 chances to 1 that things will not turn out so, but one must foresee everything. Adieu, my lovely friend. It would be very amiable of you to come and sup to-morrow at the Maréchal de 's. I could not refuse. I presume I have no need to recommend you secrecy as regards Madame de Volanges upon my country project. She would at once decide to stay in town, whereas, once arrived there, she will not start off again the next day, and if she only gives us a week, I answer for everything. Paris, 9th September 17.
Letter the 67th. The Présidente de Tourvel to the Vicomte de Valmont.
I did not mean to answer you again, monsieur, and perhaps the embarrassment I feel at the present moment is itself an effectual proof that I ought not. However, I would not leave you any cause of complaint against me. I wish to convince you that I have done for you everything I could. I permitted you to write to me, you say. I agree. But when you remind me of that permission, do you think I forget on what conditions it was given? If I had been as faithful as you have proved the reverse, would you have received a single reply from me? This is, however, the third, and when you do all that in you lies to compel me to break off this correspondence, it is I who am busy with the means of continuing it. There is one, but only one, and if you refuse to take it, it will prove to me, whatever you may say, how little value you set upon it. Forsake, then, a language to which I may not and will not listen. Renounce a sentiment which offends and alarms me, and to which you would perhaps be less attached if you reflected that it is the obstacle which separates us. Is this sentiment the only one, then, that you can understand? And must love have this one fault the more in my eyes, that it excludes friendship? Would you yourself be so wrong as not to wish for your friend her in whom you have desired more tender sentiments? I would not believe it. That humiliating idea would revolt me, would divide me from you without hope of return. In offering you my friendship, monsieur, I give you all that is mine to give, all of which I can dispose. What can you desire more? To give way to this sentiment, so gentle, so suited to my heart, I only await your assent and the word which I ask of you, that this friendship will suffice for your happiness. I will forget all that I may have been told. I will trust in you to be at the pains of justifying my choice. You see my frankness. It should prove to you my confidence. It will rest with you only, if it is to be further augmented. But I warn you that the first word of love destroys it forever, and restores to me all my fears. Above all, that it will become the signal for my eternal silence with regard to you. If, as you say, you have turned away from your errors, will you not rather be the object of a virtuous woman's friendship than of a guilty woman's remorse? Adieu, monsieur. You feel that, after having spoke thus, I can say nothing more until you have replied to me. At the Château de — 9th September, 17 —
Letter the 68th. The Vicomte de Valmont to the Présidente de Tourvel.
How, madame, am I to answer your last letter? How dare be true, when my sincerity may ruin my cause with you? No matter, I will have the courage. I tell myself, I repeat to myself, that it is better to deserve you than to obtain you. And must you deny me for ever a happiness that I shall never cease to desire, I must at least prove to you that my heart is worthy of it. What a pity that, as you say, I have turned away from my errors! With what transports of joy I should have read that same letter, to which I tremble to-day to reply. You speak to me therein with frankness, you display me confidence, and you offer me your friendship. What good things, madame, and how I regret that I cannot profit by them. Why am I no longer what I was? If I were, indeed, if I felt for you only an ordinary fancy, that light fancy which is the child of seduction and pleasure, which to-day, however, is christened love, I should hasten to extract advantage from all that I could obtain, with scant delicacy as to means, provided that they procured me success, I should encourage your frankness from my need of finding you out. I should desire your confidence with the design of betraying it. I should accept your friendship with the hope of beguiling it. What, madame, does this picture alarm you? Well, it would be a true picture of me were I to tell you that I consented to be no more than your friend. What, I consent to share with anyone a sentiment which has emanated from your soul. If I ever tell you so, do not believe me. From that moment I should seek to deceive you. I might desire you still, but I should assuredly love you no longer. It is not that amiable frankness, sweet confidence, sensible friendship are without value in my eyes, but love, true love, and such as you inspire, by uniting all these sentiments, by giving them more energy, would not know how to lend itself, like them, to that tranquillity, to that coldness of soul which permits comparisons, which even suffers preferences. No, madame, I will not be your friend. I will love you with the most tender, even the most ardent love, although the most respectful. You can drive it to despair, but you cannot annihilate it. By what right do you pretend to dispose of a heart whose homage you refuse? By what refinement of cruelty do you rob me even of the happiness of loving you? That happiness is mine. It is independent of you. I shall know how to defend it. If it is the source of my ills, it is also their remedy. No, once more, no. Persist in your cruel refusals, but leave me my love. You take pleasure in making me unhappy. Well, be it so. Endeavour to wear out my courage. I shall know how to force you at least to decide my fate, and perhaps some day you will render me more justice. It is not that I hope ever to make you susceptible, but without being persuaded you will be convinced. You will say to yourself, I judged him ill. To put it rightly, it is to yourself that you are unjust. To know you without loving you, to love you without being constant, are two things which are equally impossible. And in spite of the modesty which adorns you, it must be easier for you to feel pity than surprise at the sentiments which you arouse. For me, whose only merit is that I have known how to appreciate you, I will not lose that, and far from accepting your insidious offers, I renew at your feet my vow to love you always. Paris, 10th September, 17.
Letter the 69th. Cécile Volanges to the Chevalier Danceny. A note written in pencil and copied out by Danceny.
You ask me what I am doing. I love you and I weep. My mother no longer speaks to me. She has taken pens, ink, and paper away from me. I am making use of a pencil which has happily been left to me, and I am writing on a fragment of your letter. I needs must approve all you have done. I love you too well not to take every means of having news of you and of giving you my own. I did not like Monsieur de Valmont. and I did not know he was so great a friend of yours. I will try to get used to him, and I will love him for your sake. I do not know who it is who has betrayed us. It can only be my waiting-maid or my confessor. I am very miserable. We are going to the country to-morrow. I do not know for how long. My God, to see you no more. I have no more room. Adieu. Try to read me. These words traced in pencil will perhaps be effaced, but never the sentiments engraved on my heart. Paris, 10th of September 17.
Letter the 70th. The Vicomte de Valmont to the Marquise de Merteuil.
I have an important warning to give you, my dear friend. As you know, I supped yesterday with the Maréchal de... You were spoken of, and I said not all the good which I think, but all that which I do not think. Everyone appeared to be of my opinion, and the conversation languished, as ever happens when one says only good of one's neighbour. When a voice was raised in contradiction, it was Prévan's. Heaven forbid, he said, rising, that I should doubt the virtue of Madame de Merteuil, but I would dare believe that she owes it more to her lightness of character than to her principles. It is perhaps more difficult to follow her than to please her, and as one rarely fails, when one runs after a woman, to meet others on the way, as after all these others may be as good as she is, or better. Some are distracted by a fresh fancy, others stop short from lassitude, and she is perhaps the woman in all Paris who has had least cause to defend herself. As for me, he added, encouraged by the smile of some of the women, I shall not believe in Madame de Merteuil's virtue until I have killed 6 horses in paying my court to her. This ill-natured joke succeeded, as do all those which savour of scandal, and during the laugh which it excited, Prévan resumed his place, and the general conversation changed. But the 2 Comtesses du Bay, by the side of whom our sceptic sat, had a private conversation with him, which luckily I was in a position to overhear. The challenge to render you susceptible was accepted. Word was pledged that everything was to be told, and of all the pledges that might be given in this adventure, this one should assuredly be the most religiously kept. But there you are, forewarned, and you know the proverb. It remains for me to tell you that this Prévan, whom you do not know, is infinitely amiable, and even more adroit. If you have sometimes heard me declare the contrary, it is only that I do not like him, that it is my pleasure to thwart his success, and that I am not ignorant of the weight of my suffrage with 30 or so of our most fashionable women. In fact, I prevented him for long by this means from appearing on what we call the great scene, and he did prodigies, without for that winning any more reputation. But the fame of his triple adventure, by turning people's eyes on him, gave him that confidence which hitherto he had lacked, and which has rendered him really formidable. He is, in short, to-day, perhaps the only man whom I should fear to meet in my path. And apart from your own interest, you will be rendering me a real service by making him appear ridiculous by the way. I leave him in good hands, and I cherish the hope that on my return he will be a ruined man. I promise in revenge to carry through the adventure of your pupil, and to concern myself as much with her as with my fair prude. The latter has just sent me a letter of capitulation. The whole letter announces her desire to be deceived. It is impossible to suggest a method more time-worn or more easy. She wishes me to become her friend. But I, who love new and difficult methods, do not mean to cry quits with her so cheaply, and I most certainly should not have been at such pains with her to conclude with an ordinary seduction. What I propose, on the contrary, is that she should feel, and feel thoroughly, the value of each one of the sacrifices she shall make me, not to lead her too swiftly for remorse to follow her, to let her virtue expire in a slow agony, to concentrate her unceasingly upon the heart-breaking spectacle, and only to grant her the happiness of having me in her arms, after compelling her no longer to dissimulate her desire. In truth, I am of little worth indeed, if I am not worth the trouble of asking for. And can I take a less revenge for the haughtiness of a woman who seems to blush to confess that she adores? I have therefore refused the precious friendship, and have held to my title of lover, as I do not deny that this title, which seems at first no more than a verbal quibble, is, however, of real importance to obtain. I have taken a great deal of pains with my letter, and endeavoured to be lavish of that disorder which alone can depict sentiment. I have, in short, been as irrational as it was possible for me to be, for without one be irrational there is no tenderness, and it is for this reason, I believe, that women are so much our superiors in love letters. I concluded mine with a piece of cajolery, and that is another result of my profound observation. After a woman's heart has been for some time exercised, it has need of repose, and I have remarked that cajolery was, to all, the softest pillow that could be offered. Adieu, my lovely friend. I leave to-morrow. If you have any commands to give me for the Comtesse de... I will halt at her house, at any rate for dinner. I am vexed to leave without seeing you. Send me your sublime instructions, and aid me with your wise counsels in this critical moment. Above all, defend yourself against Prévan, and grant that I may make amends to you one day for the sacrifice. Adieu. Paris, 11th September, 17